hạnh viện và rất vui vẻ đã được quý vị tới đây để cho Lan ra mắt cái cuốn tiểu thuyết này. Thì cái cuốn này là Lan đã viết trong 10 năm. Thì thường là viết ban đêm, đêm khuya không có ai cũng ngủ, mình ở một mình thì viết trang nào cũng mình thấy là có ba cái ý nghĩa, những cái xúc động ở trong lúc khi viết. Thì cái đầu tiên là tại vì trang nào cũng viết về Việt Nam và chiến tranh và những cái xúc động của nước, là khi mà viết trong 10 năm nay lúc nào cũng nhớ đến quê hương và nước của mình đã bị nghèo và bị chiến tranh. Thứ nhì là khi viết thì Lan cũng viết về cộng đồng Việt Nam ở nước Mỹ, và viết về cũng như là phong tục của mình, lịch sử, cái cách mình đã làm một cộng đồng như thế nào. Thì Lan rất yêu quý cộng đồng Việt Nam ở đây. Mình cũng tội nghiệp là mình di cư qua ở là nước ngoài. Thì Lan hy vọng là cuốn sách này cũng là một cách mà để Lan viết để cho người ta hiểu cái cộng đồng của mình. Cái thứ ba nữa là tại vì cuốn sách này viết rất nhiều về chiến tranh Việt Nam, những cái chuyện cũng như là Huế, Tết Mậu Thân, những chiến tranh rất là đau buồn. Thì lúc nào khi viết Lan cũng nhớ tới những người lính của người Việt Nam Cộng Hòa đã hy sinh rất nhiều để cho đất nước được tự do. Thì trang nào cũng viết là cũng có ý nghĩ với những người lính. Bao giờ Lan cũng nhớ mấy câu như là Bình Long anh dũng, Tâm cung yêu hùng các chị chưa từng dạy. Thì cuốn sách này là rất là suy nghĩ tới những người lính và đang rất là hãnh diện, rất là xúc động và hãnh diện được tự cho mình là con cháu của những người Việt Nam Cộng Hòa. Cảm ơn quý vị. Bây giờ cho phép Lan nói chuyện về tiếng Anh nha. So I'm going to read two excerpts. The first one is in the voice of the father, and the story is basically a dual story, so there are alternating voices. One is the voice of a father who was a soldier in the South Vietnamese Army. He was a airborne commander. The second one is the voice of his daughter, and they alternate, so each chapter is told in each voice. So I would like to take maybe about 10 minutes per chapter, an excerpt, in order to share with you. This one is the father as he is waking up and finding news about the Iraq War and hearing how often the phrase "another Vietnam" is commonly used in American media and what that triggered in him. So the title is "For I Remember Yet." I wake up from a long night's sleep to discover that it snowed heavily overnight. Wind has blown a swell of snow onto my windowsill. The shimmering expanse of white covering the grass reflects the sun's glare. Roofs, trees, cars, everything is covered in snow. Beyond them, against a stretch of acquisitive white, a steeple dances in the mist. A pure silvery world has been created, separate from the world of yesterday. Once I used to wish for the infinite beauty of the snowfall. As a child in Saigon, I read about it, the wind-whipped powder, the geometric flakes, tree branches sheathed in white, so different from the tropical swelter I was born into. Virginia is not a state that gets heavy snow. Cars stall or slip aimlessly in the whisper of frost. Those who do not dare to wander out will stand by their windows to watch the snow lash soundlessly toward them. The clock on my bedside table shows that it is still early morning, but in this weather, my daughter might already have left for work. I run my thumb over the tips of my fingers, shriveled in the cold. I exhale and watch the uneasy vapor drift. Reflexively, I touch the familiar patch of abdominal scar tissue. How long ago that was, that dark rainy night when I parachuted into enemy territory, crawled through black earth, crowded with underbrush of thorn and thistle and rotting trees. The wound on my stomach had turned necrotic, and I had no antibiotics. The medical kit was lost in the storm that downed the helicopter. I knew how to improvise. Luckily, a swarm of flies was buzzing about, attracted to decayed flesh. I dropped to my knees, unbuttoned my shirt, and proffered my wound to them. The next day, the bandaged area teemed with an infestation of maggots. I kept it covered up, checking only once in the morning to make sure the maggots were eating abscessed tissue, not healthy pink flesh. I could feel them wriggle and swarm. The stench of blood lingered, refusing to be fanned away. What I need is a lighter tread into the past. I take in a deep breath. I touch the skeletal outline of my body, its softness, its diminishing musculature. It is hard to eat prepackaged convenience food, Jell-O, hard-boiled eggs, toast. Once your tongue has known a more belligerent, embellished flavor, it yearns for what it once had. Cloves, cinnamon, peppercorn, ginger, fennel. I crave the pinch of 5-spice powder that blends sour with sweet, bitter with savory and salty, the many-layered coatings of chassis, seasonings on pork that turn the meat a dark lurid red, burned and charred along the edges, tender in the middle. The sweetness of honey, the sharp bite of salt. Their aromatic dust drifts about, teasing, winking for memory's sake in this subdued January light. A muffled groan lodges inside my chest, followed by a series of fitful coughs. Pert footsteps stop at my bedroom door. My child? Yes, though not a child anymore, of course. A grown woman who must get to the office in the snow. I see the faint creases on her face, creases that deepen when she is deep in thought. "My?" I ask tentatively. She nods. I smile. She can be sweet and caring if on occasion distant. No one here knows how things were for me. Years ago, my now crooked fingers were made to perform wondrous feats. Through these fingers, ropes and cords were passed through tangles and loops and emerged as knots that came with names. The double black wall hitch, fisherman's bend, Turk's head, cat's paw. It was all of the training. It was all part of the training. We rehearsed every contingency while blindfolded. Cyanide pills were sewn inside shirt sleeves and trouser hems. I practiced the motion with my hands tied, body curled forward to receive the end of suffering. I bit open the seams. The pills would be within tongue's reach if a mission failed. I could swallow death. It is almost 8 in the morning, but the light is beginning to darken under the weight of hanging clouds. I'm sorry, I'm editing as I go along. I glance at the basket on the credenza. There is a plate of sticky rice, dried shrimp, and Chinese sausage. A bag of persimmons unskinned. I also smell simmered catfish and rice, even though both are in a tight-lidded stainless steel tiffin box. There are 4 canisters stacked one on top of the other, held together by latches and fitted into a metal frame with handles on top. Each box contains a different treat. Mai subscribed to what we traditionally call cơm than, monthly rice. Her subscription entitles her to home-cooked Vietnamese food, made by 2 women who have over the years developed a steadfast following. We now dine on whatever the 2 women choose to prepare and deliver each day. They typically bring comfort foods, fried vermicelli, catfish caramel in soy sauce, fish sauce, and melted sugar. Pot-bellied tomatoes stuffed with minced pork and onions. A clear broth soup that is so delicate it tastes more like tea than soup. Eggs scrambled with bitter melon. Today there is a thermos of tea and sticky rice. Although I can do it myself, Mai feeds me, scooping the sticky rice from the plate with her fingers and rolling it into a ball. I open my mouth and swallow what she slips into me. Time floats, then curls and curves backward into itself. Coaxed by the lure of memory, my mind drifts into an imagined world from years past. The distant chant of an itinerant peddler, hawking food, swims in my ears. Tamarind pods fall on the misshapen sidewalks, cracked open by the Saigon heat. I shake my head almost too violently. Saigon still wraps itself around me and squeezes with sudden force. Mai turns on the television. A weather map shows precipitation remaining in our area, which combined with the cold temperature is certain to mean more snow. I see arrows and lines and a shaded spectrum of pink and red that looks almost ornamental. "Are you cold?" she asks as she hands me a tissue for my running nose. Her narrow shoulders slope inward, giving her a meek, seemingly serene appearance, but I know better. Poor child, I think. Memories course through both of us, and sometimes they short-circuit inside her. My hand trembles as I try to protectively clasp hers. On television, the undulating green of a rice field grabs my attention. I can almost taste the succulence of a blade of rice, green and sharp against my tongue. Pagoda roofs slope with an architectural deliberateness against the Saigon skyline. Above, a helicopter hovers. Conical hats ruminate, bowing toward black earth covered by a shimmering liquid green. I reach for the remote control and raise the volume notch by notch. Tanks roll, truckloads of soldiers hop into chaos. Voices emerge, brittle with anxiety and sorrow. The number of dead is chronicled, one by one. How quickly they are counted. A precise tabulation of American dead, American wounded. Scraps and remnants of glistening green present themselves to me from a distance. Many layers of forest, thickly canopied, I can see the earth where death is interred. The scarred trees, the dark shades of green that spill over from branch to branch, as each overgrown layer fights off vines and tendrils in search of sunlight, space, and growth. I take a deep breath and look again, though I wish to forestall insurgent introspection. Over and over, newscasters recall Vietnam from the American consciousness. Quagmire. Now stretches of monochromatic orange and brown desert sand tremble in the sun's haze. Desert towns are besieged against a drifting landscape of sand and sloping plateaus. I hear of continuing fights in the embattled cities along the Euphrates, Basra, Nasiriyah, Baghdad, Najaf. In the background, outside the focus of the camera's lens, a cactus blooms amid the sunburned sagebrush. I see the crumbled sections of mosque, the traveling dust storms, the treacherous movement of shadows against gentle date palms. There is no assurance of order here in this self-canceling landscape where sand obliterates sand. Everything now occurs here, the way it occurred there so many years ago. A disputed town is controlled by a clutch of government soldiers one day, unofficial militias of one religious sect or another the next. A soldier's body is found floating in the Euphrates. Armies slip across borders, attack and retreat. I think of Phnom Penh, Cambodia, Vientiane, Laos, Saigon. I might as well have been echoing them in my sleep. The names that once ignited high passion have changed, but the ends of the earth were once found there, as if they had been there forever. I lie as she takes my hand and places it on her knee, my daughter. I know what she is doing, but my mind is on the screen. I take in a deep breath and hold it inside me before letting it out. I can feel the squeaky lungs buck and rebelling. But still, after a few minutes, I manage to find a rhythm of alternating inhalation and exhalation. The body still hurts and disobeys, but I'm learning to ignore it. I can move on. I look into Mai's face. She starts with my baby finger and clips her way to the thumb. The clippers make crisp, snappy sounds, sending the jagged edges of my nails flying. As I slip back into the slow pulse of that place from long ago, I hear the tart, scraping sounds of the broom against the floor. It must be a Vietnamese broom, by the full throaty contact it makes on tile. The rice straws, bundled and bound together by vines, scrape and scratch. I feel a tear run down my cheek. I listen to the sweeping motions left to right, left to right. My nails are being recovered and swept into a dustpan. A television announcer asks about exit strategies. That pernicious little phrase. How I know the calamity of being this country's ally, the unleashing of warring factions of fire and chaos, and then the declaration of victory. The escalating cost is proving to be too much. Too much blood, too much treasury, all adding up to a pointless generosity. I can see the politicians in Washington, D.C. preening for the next news cycle. How can they be blamed? They didn't know things would turn out like this. I watch what is going on as someone who was born in a poor country. I see how they swing the wrecking ball. I know how the weak country has to wheedle. With each successive moment, they are deeper into the very war from which they wish to exit. It is a familiar shadowed history that stalks but does not recede. It has been more than 30 years since Vietnam fell, but 1975 is still here, held to enormous scale inside me. It is now 2006. The year hardly matters. Why would it be different now? They continue to cartwheel from one disposable country to the next, saving the masses and then abandoning them. Mai has returned to my bedside and wipes my face with a washcloth. She does not seem to mind my occasional lapses. She has her own phantoms and demons. I know that she makes private but regular sojourns to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. I know that under her neatly folded shirts are pamphlets and booklets about the history, conception, and construction of this haunting structure. Once I happened upon her stash when I folded the laundry. The mere photograph of it on the book's glossy cover tugged at my heart. Two black triangular granite walls coming together to form a V, sunken below ground like a scar in the earth. Names of American dead are etched row by row on its shiny surface. A diamond next to the name means the person was killed. A cross means the person is missing. Mai props me up and plumps several cushions behind my back. She has become the keepsake of my memory. Tell me, she says, and inevitably I do. So that's the part of the father story. And so the book is basically his telling the story of his life in Vietnam and all the battles and the war to her. Now I would like to just spend about 10 minutes reading from the child's voice. And please keep in mind, this is really a work of fiction. It's not a memoir. And everything that happened in here is the truth in the sense that it has happened to somebody that we know and love. So it's a collective story. It's not just my individual story. So the next chapter that I'll be reading from is called Exodus, and it is told from the perspective of a child who is leaving Vietnam on April 1975.